Welcome back to the Rowdy.com studios with my partner Bassmasters and Reid Spencer from Sporting News. Now, I'm somewhat of an iconoclast. I'm somewhat irreverent, unlike my friend Bassmasters, who's a bit more of a romantic, a nostalgic fellow Reid. He believes that the three should not make a return appearance to the Cup Series, that it should be retired forever, yet, as you know, Austin Dillon is going to run the three in the Nationwide Series next season. Seems like just a short step until it's back at the Cup level.
Well, I would agree with that because it's incremental. Truck Series, now Nationwide Series, what's the next step? The three comes back in the Cup Series with Austin Dillon. But what I want to hear is what Bassmasters' rationale for being so passionate about not having the three come back.
Because it's Dale Earnhardt's number.
Yeah.
It stands for Dale Earnhardt. It always will stand for Dale Earnhardt. And I think that, I know there's not a tradition of retiring numbers in NASCAR, but I think if you're ever going to start a tradition of retiring numbers in NASCAR, you'd start with Dale Earnhardt, a guy who not only made that number famous and iconic, but who died in the Daytona 500 with that number on the side of his car. And I don't know what's wrong with retiring a number. I don't think we're going to have a number shortage anytime soon. And I think retiring a man's number is a way to honor that man. And I submit to you that no man deserves it more than Dale Earnhardt.
Reid Spencer, agree or disagree?
Well, I tell you what, if we haven't retired the 43 at this point, if Richard Petty determined that that number should stay on the racetrack, I think that's a great entree to say that all numbers should stay on the racetrack. And you know, when the three number comes back to the Cup Series, which I believe it will, we can remember Dale Earnhardt. And we can honor Dale Earnhardt. The guy who's going to bring the number back, after all, is Dale Earnhardt's best friend.
Well, and that's true, but I think you need to think about this down the road. That three, when it stays on the side of someone else's car for long enough, will eventually come to stand for that other person, or at least part of it will. Now, sure, you might remember that back in the day, Dale Earnhardt used to drive it. What about 50 years down the road? What about 100 years down the road? And I think that to really remember it, just the way Jackie Robinson, you know, the number 42 is not used in baseball by anybody. And the reason is because he did something so significant that we want to remember him forever by not using his number. So to me, the three is the kind of number that we should retire if we're ever going to retire a number. Now, with respect to the 43, there's an interesting case there because Richard Petty and Petty Enterprises, you know, he was not only the driver, but also the owner. So he had that choice, and he made it. But in this case, I think it's a way for the sport to honor Dale Earnhardt.
But Bassmasters, isn't really that in large part, isn't your stance in large part because of the tragic way Dale Earnhardt Sr. died? Because there are lots of iconic numbers that were identified with Cale Yarborough or Junior Johnson, but that haven't been retired. So isn't it not as much about what he accomplished as about the tragic end that befell him?
In part about that, yes.
And there are other drivers who have met unfortunate ends on the racetrack as well.
Alan Kulwicki comes to mind.
Fireball Roberts.
Sure. But when you combine the two things, Dale Earnhardt, the number three, and how he passed, look, if you're ever going to retire a number, if you're ever going to honor a man by not using his number, this to me would be the case. And if you don't do that, then I guess we just don't honor people that way in NASCAR.
Well, but the thing is, I mean, you made the argument about 50 years from now.
Yep.
50 years from now, there aren't going to be any people around who ever saw Dale Earnhardt drive.
Right.
Unless they're, you know, in the retirement home at that point. So, I mean, the three would be identified with a completely new generation of fans who may be Austin Dillon fans.
Yep.
And that being the case, you know, I don't see anything wrong with keeping that number on the racetrack.
I would also defer to Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Teresa Earnhardt and Kelly Earnhardt if they say, and I don't know that they do, but if they say, look, we want our father's legacy to stay alive through racing. We'd prefer to see this number on the track. We think that's a greater way to honor him than retiring it. I defer to them. Now, again, I haven't heard them say it. I don't know what their opinion is.
Well,
but I can certainly see that argument that you are honoring a racer by having his number used to race.
Well, that may be the case. But in my opinion, you honor someone by not using their number, by retiring that number. It's certainly a well-known way to honor someone.
In sports, it is a great
In sports,
tradition.
it's a well-known way to honor someone. That's what we do for legendary sports figures. And I submit to you, he's legendary enough to have it done for his number.
Do you think Teresa's honoring Dale Jr. by not letting him run the 8?
Well, you know, obviously not. You know, too bad he can't run the 8. I mean, the number, as you know, the number does stand for that driver in the minds of race fans. It's very significant, the number.
No, there's no question.
It's the way you refer to a guy a lot of times. You just say the 42 or the
drivers
3
always
or
use
the 8 or the 88.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it has, in a way, it has more significance to a NASCAR driver than to any other kind of sporting figure.
Well, this is certainly an issue that many race fans feel passionately about and can be polarizing. There's not a lot of middle ground
I hate
here.
you, Reid Spencer.
So if you have a feeling, if you have a comment, please don't be shy and leave it below. Do you agree with Reid Spencer? Do you agree with Bassmasters? Or do you just agree with me about anything?
Rowdy.com.
Or everything?
No, is the answer to that question.
Say it like it is.
Say what like it is?
Rowdy.com.